Welcome back to Crime Time Inc.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about Sam Giancana,
Oh, wow. Okay, Sam Giancana.
a notorious mob boss.
Mob boss.
Led the Chicago outfit for almost a decade. His story is full of intrigue and violence.
Intrigue and violence.
Even rumored ties to the CIA.
So let's begin with his early life, I guess.
Yeah, so he was born as Salvatore Giancana in 1908 to Sicilian immigrants in Chicago.
Okay, so right away, that's a typical gangster origin story. I mean,
Right.
did growing up in the patch, a rough part of town, did that really shape his future?
Absolutely. I think it definitely played a part.
Well,
As a teenager, Giancana was already involved with a tough street gang called the 42 Gang.
oh, I've heard of him.
They were practically a minor leaguer for the outfit.
Oh, wow. So almost like a feeder system.
Exactly.
Wow, and wasn't he arrested for stealing a car when he was just 17?
That's right. A lot of mobsters start that way.
Yeah.
Giancana was no exception.
Okay, so he was a getaway driver and also made money illegally.
Right.
And had a ruthless streak as well.
Yeah, he became known for all of those things.
So there were even suspicions about him being involved in murders in his early 20s.
Right.
He was never convicted, though.
Right.
But wow, his rap sheet from that time included bootlegging, car theft, burglary,
Yeah.
over 70 arrests.
Yeah, something like that.
That's insane.
I mean, it really tells you something that he was able to avoid serious consequences
Yeah.
despite all of that activity.
For sure. So his rise through the ranks is pretty amazing. He officially joined the Chicago outfit in the late 1930s.
Mhm.
By the 1940s, he was in charge of big parts of their criminal operations like gambling and liquor distribution.
Right.
That's crazy.
Giancana wasn't afraid to use violence to get what he wanted.
No.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess not a lot of mob bosses are, but he was particularly violent,
he was.
like how he took over the African-American lottery system in Chicago, which was called the policy racket back then.
Right. It was very popular in poor neighborhoods, and Giancana saw an opportunity to make a lot of money, so he took it over for the outfit.
So this policy racket was like a numbers game kind of, right?
It was a lottery where people would bet on numbers,
Okay, and so how did he take over the policy racket?
often by eliminating the competition.
Oh, wow. So did everyone in the outfit support that move?
Not everyone agreed with Giancana's methods.
Oh.
However, Giancana's ambition didn't stop there. In 1957, he became the boss of the Chicago outfit.
So in 1957, wow.
When the previous leader, Tony Accardo, supposedly retired.
Oh, okay, so Accardo stepped back.
Officially.
But he probably still had some influence behind the scenes.
Oh, most definitely.
Okay, and how did this change things for Giancana?
Well, this marked a new era for the Chicago mob. That same year, Giancana attended the famous Appalachian meeting,
The Appalachian meeting, yeah, I've heard of that.
gathering of top mafia figures from all over the country.
So why was that meeting such a big deal?
Well, it was a game changer for law enforcement because it revealed the massive network and influence of the mafia across the country. I mean, it put organized crime on the national stage.
Okay, and so they were all meeting at this mobster's estate.
A mobster named Joseph Barbara
Joseph Barbara. Oh, wow. And a local police officer busted them up.
just happened to notice a bunch of fancy cars in a rural area.
Wow. So sometimes the simplest things can really expose even the most complex criminal operations.
Exactly. Appalachian proved that the mob wasn't untouchable and that law enforcement was catching up.
That's true. Wow, that's so interesting. So he was really that confident in his control.
He had so many law enforcement officials on his payroll
Wow.
that he thought he was untouchable.
That's wild that things were that corrupt back then.
It's a dark part of Chicago's history.
Yeah, and then things get even more intriguing. Because there are accusations that Giancana and the Chicago outfit were involved in John F. Kennedy's win in the 1960 presidential election.
Right.
That's a bit unbelievable. How could someone like Giancana influence a presidential election?
Some believe he used to sway over unions and might have even rigged votes in key areas to ensure Kennedy's victory.
Okay, we need to be careful here because these are just allegations, never been definitively proven.
Right.
But the persistence of these claims is fascinating.
Yeah. The alleged link between Giancana and the Kennedys complicates this story.
For sure.
It makes you think about the potential connections between politics, power, and organized crime.
Yeah, and it said that Giancana had a mistress named Judith Exner.
Right.
And she said she acted as a go-between for him and JFK.
She even claims she carried envelopes between them.
Wow.
Some dismiss her story while others think it's possible given the circumstances.
Yeah, I guess we'll never know what really happened between the three of them. But the possibility of a love triangle involving a mob boss and a president, that's a good story.
It is a good story. It grabs people's attention.
It's the kind of story that sparks conspiracy theories and keeps people guessing for decades.
And speaking of conspiracies, let's discuss Giancana's alleged connections to the CIA.
Oh.
He was recruited by the CIA to assassinate Fidel Castro during the Kennedy administration, right?
That's the theory. It may sound like a spy thriller, but there is some evidence that supports these claims.
No, okay. So what kind of evidence are we talking about? Was there any proof of direct contact between Giancana and the CIA?
The Church Committee hearings in the 1970s investigated these activities and uncovered some surprising information.
The Church Committee hearings. So they investigated government intelligence agencies.
Right. They were formed to investigate abuses by the CIA, FBI, and other intelligence agencies.
And what exactly did they find?
Well, their findings revealed some illegal and unethical activities.
Wow.
Including assassination plots against foreign leaders.
Wow. Okay, so it appears that the CIA did actually explore using organized crime figures like Giancana
in their attempts to remove Castro from power. Wow. And a key figure in all of this was Johnny Rosselli.
Yes, Johnny Rosselli.
He was associated with the Chicago outfit.
He may have been the link between Giancana and the CIA.
He was a colorful character, involved in both the criminal underworld and espionage.
Right.
So Rosselli being involved makes the idea that the CIA approached Giancana seem much more believable.
I think so.
Because it's like the worlds of organized crime and intelligence operations overlap during this time.
Right.
It makes you wonder what else went on behind closed doors.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now Giancana was riding high as the head of the Chicago outfit, but his reign eventually came to an end.
Right.
In 1965, he was summoned to testify before a grand jury about organized crime.
Yeah, this was a significant event in Giancana's life.
So what happened when he appeared before the grand jury?
Even though he was granted immunity from prosecution, he refused to cooperate with the grand jury.
Wow, he pleaded the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination over 100 times.
Something like that.
Wow, so he was dedicated to the mafia code of silence omerta.
Right.
So unusual for a mob boss to be so defiant. Can you explain what omerta is and why it was so important?
It's the code of silence that governs the mafia, rooted in distrust of authorities and a belief that internal matters should be handled within the organization.
I see.
Breaking omerta could result in severe punishment, even death.
Wow. So Giancana's refusal to talk landed him in prison for contempt of court.
Yes.
It was a bold move that solidified his reputation as a true gangster, but it was also the beginning of his downfall. Okay, so what happened after his time in prison? Did he manage to regain control of the outfit?
He was released after more than a year, but his problems weren't over.
Okay.
To avoid further grand jury questioning, he fled to Mexico.
So he went into exile in Mexico. It shows that even powerful mob bosses couldn't always escape the law. So was his time in Mexico peaceful? Did he maintain ties to the outfit?
Life in Mexico wasn't exactly a peaceful retirement for Giancana.
Okay.
He remained involved in criminal activities, attracting the attention of Mexican authorities.
Okay, so his reputation followed him wherever he went.
It seems that he couldn't escape his past. No matter how far he ran in 1974, he was deported back to the U.S. by Mexican authorities and ended up back in Chicago.
Back in Chicago, okay.
And he was scheduled to testify before a federal commission investigating CIA mafia collaboration.
Oh, wow. So the timing of his return seems very suspect because he was about to potentially spill secrets about the CIA and organized crime,
Right.
And then tragedy struck.
On June 19th, 1975.
1975.
Just days before he was set to testify, Giancana was murdered in his home in Oak Park, Illinois.
Murdered in his home. Wow. And what were the circumstances of his death? Was there anything unusual about the crime scene?
His death was brutal. He was shot multiple times in the head, execution style, while cooking in his basement kitchen.
Oh, wow. So we're talking about a professional hit here. Was anything stolen? Were there signs of a struggle? Did the police have any leads?
The killer used a .22 caliber pistol, probably with a silencer.
A silencer.
The timing and method of his death have generated countless conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I bet. Many believe he was silenced to prevent him from revealing what he knew about the CIA's dealings with the mafia.
Okay, and to make it even more mysterious, there is evidence that Giancana had let his killer into the house, so it seems he knew and trusted the person who ended his life.
It makes it even more tragic.
It does.
It shows that even in the world of organized crime, trust can be a dangerous thing.
That's a lot to process.
Yeah.
Let's take a moment to consider the implications of what we've learned about Giancana so far. His story has so many twists and turns, it's hard to believe that one man could be connected to so many major events.
It's a story that could only happen in a city like Chicago, a place where organized crime has had such a strong presence, and the boundaries between power and corruption have often been blurred. Before we go any further, let's talk a bit more about Giancana, the person, we know he was ruthless and ambitious, but what was he like on a personal level?
Well, he was a complicated individual,
Yeah.
known for his charm and charisma. He could be very charming when he wanted to be, and had a way of making people feel comfortable.
So he probably used that charm to manipulate people to get what he wanted.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But those who knew him well said he also had a quick temper. He could get angry easily and was known for violent outbursts.
So unpredictable.
Yeah.
That must have made him both feared and respected.
Exactly. It was part of what made him such an effective leader.
Yeah.
People didn't dare cross him.
And how did he get the nickname Mooney?
There are a couple of theories. Some say he got it because he used to stare at the moon a lot as a kid. Others say it was because of his unpredictable mood swings.
Oh, so maybe it was a bit of both.
Maybe so.
Well, it certainly adds to his mystique.
Definitely.
And let's not forget his ties to the glamorous world of Hollywood. His relationship with singer Phyllis McGuire was a huge scandal at the time.
It definitely was.
And McGuire was one of the McGuire sisters, a famous singing group. And her relationship with Giancana caused a huge stir, even led to Frank Sinatra losing his ownership of the Cal Neva Lodge in Lake Tahoe.
Right.
And Sinatra introduced Giancana to McGuire. That must have been a decision he regretted later.
Sinatra was known for his connections to both show business and organized crime.
Right.
His association with Giancana ended up costing him a lot.
Okay, so Giancana's love life wasn't the only thing that made the news. He was constantly under surveillance by law enforcement. The FBI was always watching him.
Always.
They wanted to bring him down and used every method they could. Wiretaps, bugs, even followed him when he played golf.
They did.
That must have been frustrating for Giancana because he was used to being in control and having things his way.
The FBI's tactics were relentless. They even followed him into restaurants and stood next to him when he used the bathroom.
That's insane. It seems like they were trying to provoke him into making a mistake.
It was a psychological game that definitely affected Giancana.
Wow. All that pressure eventually led to his downfall in 1965 when he was imprisoned for refusing to testify before a grand jury.
Right. Giancana's refusal to cooperate with the grand jury was a huge blow to the outfit.
It showed that even their boss wasn't above the law. After getting out of prison, he went into exile in Mexico, but eventually he was deported back to the U.S.
The FBI arranged his deportation. They knew he had valuable information and wanted to use him.
Okay, and just days before he was supposed to testify, before a Senate committee about CIA mafia connections, he was murdered.
Right. His murder is still one of the most fascinating unsolved crimes in American history. The timing and the circumstances point to him being silenced to prevent him from revealing sensitive information.
There are so many unanswered questions. Who ordered the hit? Was it the CIA or a rival mob faction?
We may never know the answer for sure, but Giancana's story continues to intrigue us. He was a larger-than-life figure who embodied both the allure and the danger of organized crime.
Yeah, his life was so full of contradictions. He was a ruthless killer, but also a charismatic leader, a dedicated father, and someone who loved the finer things in life.
He was very much a product of his time and his environment, a man who climbed from modest beginnings to become one of the most powerful criminals in America.
Yeah, and his violent end reminds us of the harsh realities of the world he lived in.
A world where loyalty was fragile, betrayal was common, and violence was always a threat.
So the Chicago outfit, as we know, they had a big hand in shaping the city's history.
Oh, absolutely.
They were involved in everything from labor racketeering and gambling to prostitution.
Right, and their reach extended into politics, law enforcement, and even the entertainment industry.
Yeah, they were a force to be reckoned with,
Yeah.
and I think their legacy is still felt in Chicago today.
Most definitely.
It's remarkable that Giancana, the son of Sicilian immigrants, rose to such a position of power within this criminal empire.
His rise speaks volumes about his ambition, ruthlessness, and ability to navigate the treacherous waters of organized crime.
Yeah, and it also points to the widespread corruption that plagued Chicago back then.
Right.
His ability to operate so freely suggests he had powerful allies in both government and law enforcement.
Yeah, you're right. His story reminds us that organized crime thrives when it has connections to those in authority.
So let's talk more about how the Chicago outfit was structured. It
Okay.
wasn't just a bunch of random gangsters, was it?
No, not at all. They had a hierarchy rules and a complex system of operations.
Okay, so they had a clear chain of command.
They did, with a boss at the top, then an underboss, a consigliere, and various capos who controlled different crews and territories.
Okay, and they had their own unique rules and customs.
Absolutely, like the Code of Silence Omerta, which prohibited members from cooperating with law enforcement.
Right, omerta was a fundamental principle of the mafia. It was designed to protect the organization and its members from prosecution. Anyone who broke the code faced severe consequences, often death.
Right.
So their operations were sophisticated too.
They used legitimate businesses to launder money and had a wide network of informants and corrupt officials who helped them stay ahead of the law.
The outfit's ability to blend into legitimate society made them even more dangerous.
For sure, they could operate openly while conducting their illegal activities.
And they weren't afraid to use violence to maintain their grip on power. They were responsible for countless murders, bombings, and acts of intimidation.
Violence was essential to their business model. They used it to enforce discipline, eliminate rivals, and instill fear in their enemies.
Giancana's time as boss was particularly violent, wasn't it? He seemed willing to eliminate anyone who threatened his power.
His ruthlessness was legendary.
Yeah.
And ultimately played a part in his downfall.
Okay.
He created too many enemies, and in the end, they caught up with him.
A classic tale of rise and fall.
Right. Giancana achieved enormous power and wealth, but it all came crashing down.
His story is a reminder that a life of crime rarely ends well.
True. No matter how powerful you become, there's always someone waiting to take you down.
So Giancana's death left a vacuum in the Chicago outfit, but it didn't mean the end of their reign.
Right. They continued to operate under new leadership, adapting to changing times and new challenges.
And the outfit showed remarkable resilience.
They survived numerous law enforcement crackdowns, internal power struggles, and the shifting landscape of organized crime.
And they branched out into new areas like drug trafficking and white-collar crime.
They learned to be more discreet, avoiding the kind of high-profile violence that brought Giancana down.
So the Chicago outfit may be a shadow of its former self today, but it's still considered a major criminal presence in the city.
Right. They may not be as powerful or visible, but they continue to operate in the shadows.
Organized crime is a constantly changing phenomenon. It adapts to new opportunities and threats.
The Chicago outfit's ability to survive and adapt is a testament to their resilience and their enduring criminal enterprise.
So what happened to the key players in Giancana's story after his death? Did anyone ever face justice for his murder?
Giancana's murder remains unsolved to this day. There have been plenty of theories and suspects, but no one has ever been charged.
So it seems like his killers got away with it.
That's possible, but it's also possible the investigation is ongoing.
Yeah.
The FBI doesn't give up easily, especially on a case involving someone as high profile as Giancana.
What about Judith Exner, Giancana's mistress, who claimed to be a liaison between him and JFK? What became of her?
Exner lived a long and eventful life after her involvement with Giancana. She continued to be in the news, appearing on TV, and giving interviews about her supposed relationship with JFK.
So she must have known a lot of secrets.
She did, and she wasn't afraid to show them. Her claims about Giancana and JFK caused controversy and fueled conspiracy theories for decades.
Did she ever face any legal trouble for her involvement with organized crime?
She was called to testify before several committees and grand juries, but she never faced any criminal charges.
It sounds like she managed to navigate the dangerous world of organized crime without getting caught in the crossfire.
She was a survivor. She had to be to survive in that world.
And what about Johnny Rosselli, the Chicago outfit associate who allegedly connected Giancana and the CIA?
Rosselli met a gruesome end in 1976. His body was found stuffed in a 55-gallon oil drum, dumped in Biscayne Bay near Miami.
That definitely sounds like a typical mob hit.
It does. The circumstances suggest he was eliminated because he knew too much about the CIA's ties to organized crime.
So many of the people connected to Giancana met violent ends. It's a stark reminder of the perilous world they lived in.
A world where loyalty was fleeting, betrayal was common, and violence was a constant threat.
Giancana's story is a cautionary tale about the appeal and the dangers of power. He attained immense wealth and influence, but it ultimately cost him his life.
And the secrets he took to his grave continue to intrigue us.
His legacy is complicated. He was a ruthless criminal who left a trail of violence and destruction, but he was also a charismatic and complex figure who captured the public's imagination.
His story reminds us that the truth about organized crime can be stranger than fiction.
We've uncovered a lot of interesting information today, but there's still so much we don't know.
Yeah, his story speaks to the enduring power of organized crime and the unseen forces that can shape our world.
It's a story that keeps captivating and intriguing us even decades after his death.
And it's a story that will probably continue to be debated and analyzed for years to come.
Yeah, and, his actions had repercussions that continue to echo.
Right. Not just in Chicago, but, far beyond.
That's true. It's remarkable how the life of one man
Right.
can be so deeply intertwined with, significant moments in history.
Giancana's story intersects with the Kennedys, the CIA, the Cold War,
Yeah.
and the evolution of organized crime in America. It's a lot to absorb.
So one of the most captivating parts of Giancana's story, I think, is his supposed involvement in the 1960 presidential election.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, the notion that a mob boss could have swayed the outcome of a presidential election is both intriguing and unsettling.
Right.
It raises concerns about the integrity of our democratic process
Yeah.
and the influence of organized crime on American politics.
Do you think those concerns are still valid today?
Well, the allegations have never been definitively proven,
True.
but they continue to spark speculation and debate.
And then there's his connection to the CIA. It's hard to fathom that the U.S. government would even consider collaborating with mobsters
Right.
to assassinate a foreign leader.
It sounds like something out of a fictional spy story,
Yeah.
but evidence suggests it did occur.
Right. And the Church Committee hearings brought to light some shocking information
Absolutely.
about the CIA's activities during the Cold War.
They did?
Can you just remind us what the Church Committee uncovered?
Well, the CIA was determined to remove Castro from power,
Okay.
and they were willing to explore any means to achieve that goal, including collaborating with criminals.
Okay, so it's a troubling period in American history,
It is.
one that prompts serious ethical questions.
It demonstrates the lengths to which the government was willing to go
Yeah?
to achieve its objectives and how easily the lines between right and wrong can blur.
And Giancana's alleged involvement with the CIA adds another layer of mystery
Right.
to his story and makes his murderer even more suspect. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the timing of his death, mere days before his scheduled testimony, for a Senate committee raises serious suspicions. It's difficult not to conclude that he was silenced to prevent him from revealing what he knew.
What does his murder tell us about the world he inhabited?
I think it serves as a stark reminder that the world of organized crime is a dangerous one, even for those at the very top.
So Giancana's story kind of testifies to this enduring allure of the mob, right?
Mhm.
It's a realm of power, wealth, and danger that continues to fascinate us even decades after his death.
It's a world often romanticized in movies and TV shows,
Right.
but the reality is far more brutal and unforgiving.
His life was a tumultuous journey. He experienced the exhilaration of power and the agony of betrayal. He lived a life of luxury, but met a violent end.
His story reminds us that the pursuit of power and wealth can come at a steep price.
And his death, while tragic, underscores that no one is above the law.
Right.
Giancana's story is complex and captivating.
Absolutely.
Raises more questions than it answers, yet it continues to hold our attention and reminds us of these hidden undercurrents of American history. So what are some of the key takeaways you'd like our listeners to consider?
It's a story that teaches us about the nature of power,
Yeah.
the perils of corruption, and the enduring allure of the mob.
As usual, our own two ex-crime fighters will be reviewing all of this week's cases on Sunday. But in the meantime, tune in tomorrow for another great true crime episode.